So let's understand that a little bit more. Rather than acknowledging that there is a body here, there are thoughts here, there are possessions here, the mind in its ignorance doesn't know and doesn't reflect on whose body is this, whose mind is this, whose environment is this. So the way to think about Maya is the ultimate deception, the delusion of matter itself, the delusion that the physical world is the only and ultimate reality. And this is the delusion that we are always in. It's as though our minds have been in a fog and we're not able to see very clearly. And in the ancient spiritual traditions of India, we've seen a very important analogy to try and describe what this looks like. And the analogy is that imagine you walk into a dark room and you see a snake in the corner and you jump and you're very scared and you're frightened. But as soon as you switch the light on, you realize that it's never been a snake. It wasn't a snake at all. In fact, it was just a rope that was coiled up. And this analogy of seeing a snake when really it was a rope is something that the spiritual masters have used to try and show you that just as when you're in a dark room and you see a rope, but your mind projects the idea that there's a snake there, in the same way, our mind projects the idea of ourselves. Your mind sees one thing and assumes it's something else. And you think that you are an individual. Rather than looking at what you really are, the mind projects the illusion of me onto the body. Me being the snake, the individual, as the owner of this body. The mind projects this idea that I am a real thing. So let's understand that a little bit more. Rather than acknowledging that there is a body here, there are thoughts here, there are possessions here, the mind in its ignorance doesn't know and doesn't reflect on whose body is this, whose mind is this, whose environment is this. The mind in its ignorance, without knowing, comes up with the conclusion that there is a voice in this head, so the voice in the head must be the owner of this body. There is a voice in this mind, and so everything that it says, it must be the creator of those thoughts. Every thought that comes into the mind, the voice inside my head must be the creator of those thoughts. The spiritual masters are simply those who have gone in and introspected. And it's very important that we understand that when we talk about spiritual leaders, masters, meditators, mindfulness experts, we're not talking about some people who are believing in something mystical. They don't just put their faith in some imaginary ideas of oneness. In the old days, spirituality and science was essentially the same thing. The spiritual masters were the scientists, but what they did more than anything else is, rather than just observing the external world without interfering with it, which is the way of science at the moment, what they did is they also observed themselves. They went in and applied the same scientific method of observing things and rationally recording them down and checking with their peers to make sure that what I'm observing is also what you can observe when you go within yourself. They used a very scientific method, but not to observe the world, but to observe themselves. And when they went within themselves, the big question that they asked themselves is, okay, I think there is a me. Let me go find that me. Where is that me? And the deeper they looked within themselves, they realized there is no me. The me cannot be found. It is a delusion. It is something that appears from the mind. The mind projects the idea of me. But when we look within ourselves, there is nothing tangible that we can find. There is no creator of thoughts, there's no thinker within myself, there is no me. And so this is such an important idea. And when they came out of that, they realized we've all been deluded. Every single human being believes that there is a me within themselves. It's like they've been drugged. And so the mind is this snake. The mind is the illusion of the snake when really all there is a rope itself.